We are now live. Greetings to the Texas rural business community. Hope everybody's doing well today. My name is Jaime Martinez, and I'm the Senior Project Manager of the UTSA Small Business Development Center in San Antonio. I want to welcome everybody to the Texas Rural Challenge today. We appreciate you joining us here over the next couple of days. I want to also introduce our session today of Ask an Advisor of the Texas Small Business Development Center here in the state of Texas. So we do have a group of 4 different advisors from around the state, and we're very honored to have all of them here today. So to be able to kind of talk about how what their experiences have been and their centers from around the state and the communities that the small business communities that they're assisting, and what they're to today and how they can help you. And at the very end, being able to personally answer each and every one of your questions. Before we get started, in the panel to your right, you will be able to have the opportunity, as some great people here are already typing in and saying hello to all of us, to be able to type in your questions, and then towards the end of the event, you will have one of the business advisors answer you directly. So, what I'd like to be able to do is I will be moderating the sessions today and going through different questions that we have and that we feel are very important to the Texas rural community, the businesses, and to talk about what we can do, especially helping in this time to continue to provide the businesses with relief, additional relief, recovery in this time, being able to reboot your business to stay resilient, during this continued, pandemic that we currently have. So I will now go around and introduce your esteemed panel, starting out with ladies first, and our very own Mary Peters. Mary, good morning. And Mary Peters is our Associate Director of Operations for the Southwest Texas Border ASBDC Network here at UTSA. She is our chat and Q&A captain today. I coined that term recently. So she will be directing your questions to the appropriate advisors as we go forward. So thank you, Mary, for participating with us here today. Also, Amy Freeman. Good morning, Amy. She is a business advisor at the Navarro College, ASBDC, Small Business Development Center in Fairfield, Texas. This is in our North Texas region. So thank you, Amy, for joining us. Mr. Mark Martinez, Senior Business Advisor at the University of Houston, Victoria Small Business Development Center. And this is also a part of our Southwest Texas Border Network. Mr. Dexter Stikes, Senior Business Advisor at the Texas Tech University in Lubbock. So thank you, sir, for joining us here. And last but not least, Mr. John Lee, Business Advisor at the University of Houston Small Business Development Center. So John, thank you for joining us. I'm again very, very happy to have this esteemed panel. There is many years of wealth of information and resources, part of this SBDC, who have been with us for a long time, here part of our network, and have the honor of meeting a couple of them over the years that I've been around myself. So, as I always like to start out an intro to these types of roundtable events. In March of last year, of 2020, all of the small business development centers and around the state of Texas, and our network is broken up into 4 regions. There are over 20 SBDCs around the state, taking care of the 200 plus counties that we currently have in our state. So there are boots in the ground to be able to help you here today. And so if they're not here, we'll provide their contact information a little bit later on how to get a hold of them directly. It was regardless of the advisor specialties. Some advisors were just specialists in government contracting and human resources and cybersecurity and besides our generalist advisors that we had. But during that particular time, starting in mid-March, we all had to change our focus to help out our current small business clients and those who have not reached out to us for assistance, to help demystify and help them find the initial relief that they needed to where now they're recovering and rebooting their operations. And so it was a very novel time during during that initial part of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I want to let everybody know that we are in this for the long haul, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. To provide the no-cost one-on-one confidential business advisor that we've been doing for many years here in the state. So all that being said, I'd like to just kind of get right into it and get into some questions that I have prepared for our esteemed advisors. And as I mentioned, ladies first, Amy. So as we are slowly, returning to, I guess you could call it the new normal, right? And we're still virtual, we're not in person right now. But what are some of the challenges that you've seen your rural business clients that you all are assisting out of your office, and what challenges are they facing?
Well, I can remember a week in May that I met with various types of businesses, and the problem that they were all facing was a lack of employees. I had a tree farm that needed a bookkeeper. I had an auto repair business that needed a mechanic, a diesel mechanic. And then I had a restaurant that needed wait staff. And it seemed like it was such a strange thing to see three very different industries all with the same basic issue. And so, like everyone during certain seasons of this pandemic experience, they were all experiencing the same problem.
Thank you for that. Specifically, yes, they can't get any more rural than that. A tree farm, in your area. Great. So no, thank you for that. Mark, same thing to you. I mean, as we slowly are returning to the new normal, I mean, some people are still virtual. People are more comfortable going out and businesses are selling more, returning to their previous revenue streams. What are some challenges, Mark, that you've seen and for some of your rural business clients?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing is slower sales, a lot less spending from a lot of their clients and even other businesses that they were doing business with. And so, one of the other challenges that I'm seeing with that is that a lot of small business clients are having to go to using credit cards to fund their business and have that working capital that they need. The only problem with that is now they're maxing out those credit cards, which has lowered their credit scores, and they really don't have anywhere to really go to now, whether it be a traditional lender or even a micro lender, because their credit scores are too low and their debt to equity is just too high.
Okay, that's actually a good point. That's some of our advisors are hearing, very much the same. Dexter, over to you. Talk to us about some of the challenges that are going on in your area.
Oh, sure. Our problems in this area, we have 95 counties in the West Texas area in and around Lubbock, and it's largely the same as what Amy was saying, is that there's been some difficulty in finding employees, people that want to come back to work. I think from our latest statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, our unemployment rate in May was 4.7%. That's the lowest it's been since February, pre-pandemic. Amarillo's the same. That's also in our area, actually lower at about 3.9%. Abilene 4.6%, and Stephenville, not that way, it's also right around that same area. The only place where the unemployment's a little bit higher is in the oil field area, in the Midland, Odessa area. Some of the regional oil gas activity was compounded by COVID. So finding people, finding employees has been difficult. Even though that the federal benefits, I think they ended in June 26, it's still been a slow march to find employment or employees.
Definitely, Dexter. Yes, that has been a hot topic for at least the past 3 months, and we all see that in the news. Okay, understood. John, lastly to you for the same point, same question.
Well, obviously, hiring is always a big thing, but one of the things that we have seen with a lot of our rural clients, and this is something that not just due to COVID, it's built up over the years, is that there's hardly any local banks anymore. Most of these they've merged and they've become the bigger ones. And as they've done that, a lot of our rural clients have lost that one-on-one relationship that they had with the banks. And so like when PPP first came out, they felt like they were last in line, that all the big guys got the money before they did. And they lost those, and they need to regain that banking relationship that is so important for any business. And that's something that I think that we've seen as being a challenge, is they did not have somebody that they could go to who knew who they were, who knew what their business was all about, and could actually help them when it came time to do some funding or line of credit, whatever it was that they needed to be able to help them through this pandemic.
Right. Thank you, John, for that comment. I mean, a lot of the time, even before COVID, and during this time that, businesses would call us, it was always about, finance and lending and loans. And it's even more so now important not just to find money, but also who to have a relationship with, and they're even local anymore. Understood. Okay. Well, let's stick with you, John, for the next point. I mean, in the next 3 months, what would you describe as the most important priorities for our rural small business owners to address? So what do they need to be addressing their business, you think, in the next 3 months?
Well, one of the things that I've seen, especially the smaller retail outlets, is supply chain issues. And mainly the ones that are having stuff that is imported, because that's where a lot of the problems. And, you talk to some of these small retail shops, and you don't realize they're actually importing from India or from China or from other places to get their products. And that supply chain has been severely disrupted. They've got suppliers that are telling them it's going to be 6 to 12 months before they can get items that they used to be able to get within a week. One thing that I think that has changed is that they're now looking to find more domestic suppliers that they didn't do before, because you can't sell something that you don't have, so you'd rather sell something at a smaller margin, at least to get that margin. So that's one of the things that is a priority, is they have to make sure that their supply chain is working the way it's supposed to, and the way it's that they need it to, because they don't have room for a bunch of inventory. They cannot fund that. So they have to be able to get the product in and turn it around. And they've got to figure out new ways to do that with the supply chain. So I think that is a big thing that is affecting a lot of the non-agricultural small business.
Right. Thanks, John. I mean, I also think that could be of a benefit to them. Renegotiating where they're getting their products, supplies, raw materials from could be cheaper, could be faster, could be better. Good. Amy, same thing over to you. I mean, what do you think that your rural business clients should be focusing on over the next few months, 3 months?
Well, I did definitely identify with the discussion earlier about cash flow. It's the most pivotal piece of any of this, is responding effectively to the cash you did receive, whether it be through PPP or EIDL, and how you're utilizing those funds the most effectively, and keeping your credit scores in a appropriate area. And because I believe that's really for the long haul, it's going to be making strategic decisions about your cash.
Good. Paying more attention to that bottom line now on a more frequent basis. Correct. Mm-hmm. Mark, over to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, and this is even prior to COVID as well, but I think small businesses should really be looking at contingency planning a lot more now than even before, because, the challenges are going to continue being there. And I think that just having some sort of plan for the future of how they're going to maybe make some modifications, or maybe look at new revenue streams, or just how do they deal with maybe some of the downfalls of that reduced cash flow or reduced business in itself. So I think contingency planning is a big piece.
Yeah, so the business owner should probably dust off that strategic plan from a couple of years ago and look at it. Good point. Dexter, what's your guidance?
Well, I'm having experiencing some of the same problems as others, in our area, some of our entrepreneurs, some of our businesses. The supply chain, problem has definitely been difficult to overcome, particularly where new construction is concerned. The price, of lumber had gone up significantly. I think it's starting to drop now. It had gone up like 40%, which priced up the cost of, building on or an extension and an opportunity where you might have had an expansion. Now you got to pull back. Plus, if you compound that with the financing, it's like, wow, this cost me more than it cost before. And so that's definitely slowed down some potential, rebuilding efforts or for some of the new businesses. And then to dovetail with the earlier point, some of the challenges in the near term have been really related to, getting people back into the workplace. And so employers are had to sweeten the pot. Labor certainly has an advantage now. And so they're expecting to get paid more. They're expecting childcare. They're expecting flex hours and working from home and increased benefits. And how to manage that, and still, run a profitable operation has been a real question mark for, some of the businesses out here.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Dexter. Adapting in this environment, thinking of different ways to do business and to their clients and their employees that they didn't have to really think before, or maybe we're okay. Good point. Thank you on that one. So went last, but let's get you to go first on this next question, this next point. Dexter, can you give us an example of changes that rural businesses have had to make, in their business model, very similar to the previous one, changes to their business model or possibly target market, their clientele?
Sure. And I think the key word for everybody has been pivot, right? That they've had to adopt, whether that be rural or nationwide. And the real challenge was how to get customers to the product. And they, every place was the same. They had to mask up, they had to sanitize. That's still, a problem for some, and getting people back to their business. And then how to get on the flip side of that same coin, how to get the product to the customer. So, grocery delivery was a thing before, but now more people have become accustomed to it. And so understanding what the customer's preferences are and trying to fill those needs, if you can fill those two, how to get the customer to the product and then how to get the product to the customer, I think you'll go a long way to, maybe getting some of that market to return back to you.
Right. Yeah, pivot. I've had some friends make fun of me because I've been using pivot too much, and it works just in every part of your life. So good. Thank you, Dexter, for that. Mr. John, talk to us about, what have you seen in your market on business model changes and focusing, maybe getting into a different target market? I'm sorry, John, you're on mute.
So I agree with Dexter. There's a couple of small restaurants that I work with in rural communities that never had to deliver before, but they learned how to do that. They did it with their own employees, and because they couldn't have a full restaurant, they started using their employees and actually were able to pay them a little bit more and have them do some delivery. And they found that some of the people that worked in the cities that were home and working from home, it actually, they were able to increase their sales. I mean, I've got one restaurant in particular that he didn't qualify for the second round of PPP because he didn't have any decrease in sales. His sales actually went up in 2020. So people that normally were maybe eating breakfast and then leaving were actually staying in those communities. And, let's be honest, in a lot of these small communities, there wasn't a lot of masking up and a lot of closing going on. It really wasn't a whole lot of difference for them. You had some that were hit really hard, but other ones not as much. But I have also seen them having to change some things, like they're having to change their tax reporting. they're having to act like a real business, which they really didn't do before. They've got to change from that mom and pop to act like a real business, do things the right way, because what they're finding now is that, yeah, you do all these things to try to make sure you pay the smallest amount of taxes, but your business isn't really showing a profit. And now bank's not going to give you a loan. So they're going to have to do things the way that they're supposed to do them, and not, operate like a business and not just like a hobby. And I've had to talk to quite a few of them about that.
Okay. Amy, over to you. Same question.
Well, I had a really great example of a business that provided curriculum to high schools for prep for the STAR testing. And they were hit extremely hard because suddenly the spring of 2020, they didn't have any of those, the needs changed, right? And they were able to utilize the idle funds to build online curriculum over the fall in preparation for this spring. So they could, instead of having, it helped them pivot, great word, right? Into something that they had been wanting to do for a long time, which is to provide online curriculum easier to access. And so I thought it was a great creative use of the funds. But to build it into a business that would have probably been huge, much more impacted over a long term as we kind of come out of the pandemic. So that was my example.
Okay, thank you. No, it's a good one. Mark, talk to us about, in your community, where in the areas that you cover, what are some of the changes that you've seen?
Yeah, some of the changes that I'm seeing is that where some of our small businesses are starting to evaluate the resources that they currently have and how they can use those in different ways. So, for example, we had a truck driver who used to haul dirt and went from hauling dirt to hauling vegetables. So he was using the same resources, but changed his, made some modifications to his business model. Another example would be a welder who wasn't welding aluminum before, put himself through a training program and learned how to weld aluminum, and is now doing pretty well welding aluminum. So I think a lot of people are starting to do that. Is they're starting to look at maybe some of the things that they thought they wouldn't do before, they are now doing, because that's what's making the money as to what they were relying on previously.
Yeah. Is that pivoting or shifting? Maybe a little bit of both. But I love that. That's great. I mean, from hauling, aggregate to getting into vegetables, and then, or getting into, I guess it's shifting into just a different type of trade or craft within this trade. I guess that's great. That's great news. Mark, in speaking with you, what are some of the greatest opportunities for small businesses? I mean, regardless of rural community, but just for small businesses, going forward, what do you see? That's some of the greatest opportunities.
Yeah, some of the greatest opportunities would be, one is just, finding as much training. Your SBDCs throughout Texas offer lots of free training online through webinars, or some may be starting in person, but taking advantage of all the training and resources available in your communities. Also thinking outside the box, like we were talking about with some of these other business owners that are evaluating what they have and just evolving. Looking at if you weren't utilizing social media, if you weren't utilizing e-commerce, start looking at some of those things, because that's what I'm seeing as well, is that a lot of small businesses who never wanted to be on social media or have any kind of online presence, now they're seeing that, hey, I'm losing out on a lot of revenue because I'm not on these platforms that my competitors are beating me. So again, it's just looking at evolving, changing, and it may be hard at times, but it's things that have to be done, and you'll be better off. You'll be better off in the future for doing it.
Right. That's true. I like that. And so, before I get to the next, panelist, I will say that, if you all have any, we actually have quite a few questions coming in right now. I can see in the chat, and Mary has also posted, if Amy, John, Mark, Dexter are not in your area, again, we cover the entire state as far as an SBDC. You can, look for the center locator at the SBDCtexas.org website, and Mary has posted the direct link in the chat. So feel free to reach out to the rest of our colleagues here. So thank you, Mark, for that. And Mr. Dexter, talk to us. What do you think are some of the greatest opportunities right now going forward for small businesses?
Sure. So I guess what we're doing right now is a case in point, an example of an opportunity, the ability to reach out and now connect with people without having to be in the same place. So one of the outcomes of COVID is that we connect more via the internet. Incorporating technology can bring those rural communities, to the world. And so they don't have to leave in order to find their customers or to have a conversation with a buyer or a seller or with another business. They don't have to leave home. And that's also good for the rural communities, because that means people that live in those rural communities can find opportunities. They can work from where they are, versus having to move to a new location, and this is all predicated, for rural communities, is that, that effort to extend broadband, because these technologies require more bandwidth. And now it's incumbent upon some of these communities to look and invest in these opportunities, because it can bring more money to their local economies and keep some of their local citizens there.
Yes, the issue of the digital divide, lack of access to broadband internet, or just technology in general, computer, even know how to use it. So very, very, very interesting. Thank you, Dexter. And John, what are some opportunities that you see?
Well, to play on kind of what Mark said, embrace social media, and not just Facebook. Put a TikTok video out there. You'd be surprised what you can get out of there. Use your Instagram account. Actually post some things, but learn how to do it the right way. Learn how to schedule it. It can't just be haphazard. If you're going to embrace it, you got to embrace the whole thing, and it's got to be something that you do. But just because you're out in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean that you can't reach people all over the world. And the other thing would be, sometimes we have difficult conversations with our clients. I tell a lot of them, you don't pay me, so I can afford to be brutally honest with you. And with some of them, it's act big, kind of like what I talked about before. Act like you're a big company, even if you're not. This is where you want to be. Well, then act like it. Do things the right way. Make sure that you're doing it. Build up some capital so that you can weather some of these storms. Jaime said, our region office is with U of H. I'm in Beaumont, which is otherwise known as Hurricane Central. We've been through our share of floods and everything that we've had. And so a lot of our clients are very used to dealing with disasters, but they still want to, you still have to kind of drag them kicking and screaming to the part of actually building up some capital so that you're not relying on somebody else to come bail you out. Because that government money a lot of times takes a long time to show up. This COVID was an exception to the rule. So the biggest thing I think for a lot of these smaller places is just quit acting like you're small. Act like you're big. Do things the right way. Form those relationships. Do your accounting like you're supposed to, and then embrace social media. Get with the program, get with the 21st century, and let's see what you can accomplish.
Thanks, John. Great points. And lastly, and this is our last question, I really want to, with about 15, 20 minutes left in our session, I really want to get to some of these questions. And so ending with you, Amy, talk to us about, what do you see in some of the opportunities looking forward?
Looking forward, I think, expanding, like everyone has been saying, I think it's a key factor that we've tried to speak into our rural businesses for a long time is stop looking at the people who come in your door or who live in your town. Your market is much larger. And I believe it helped, if nothing else, it helped them begin to have to force themselves to see this in a bigger light, that the people weren't going to walk in their door necessarily at all. So they better figure out how to get their products out. I had a great example of a cattle ranch who sells premium meats, and they figured out how to bring people or send it to away from their local area. People want premium meat. They would love to have access to better meat products. And so changing what they're doing so that they can provide the necessary things to customers out there beyond their front door.
I love it. I mean, and especially, in the recovery, phase, I mean, they'll be able to become more resilient now when that revenue stream comes back because they've just expanded. That's fantastic. I'm loving hearing all that. So, I mean, wow. Ladies, gentlemen, I mean, this was a great discussion about hearing what's going on in the areas that you all serve around the state. Captain Mary Peters, I see we've had quite a few questions that have come up. You mind kind of going over some of them and directing to whomever or to our panelists? I mean, if whoever wants to answer it, go for it. Mary, you've got the floor.
Okay, since we have a fantastic panel, I see that Dexter has already responded to a question within the chat, but Dexter, if you could please give us a summary of that Q&A.
Sure. And so there was a question by one of the audience members, how to connect with some of the ag producers out here. And, I suggested in my response that there are a lot of associations like, the Sorghum Association or the Texas Corn Producers or some of the Cotton Association. You could reach out instead of trying to call them individually. You can, and perhaps they can help you identify exactly what you're looking for. If you can contact them, they can help you find some of their members and some of the companies with the commodities that you might be looking for. So I think they're a great resource, and they typically know the area very well.
Thank you, Dexter. I think that response and that advice might also serve one of the other questions that was posed regarding a goat creamery making goat cheese. I'm getting hungry this morning, just reading about it. But their business had increased. So there's some challenges hiring employees and finding new vendors to keep up with their stock. Any of you have any suggestions beyond those associations as a way to address their supply chain?
Yeah, that is a difficult question, for all. And I think in some measure, a lot of companies are trying to collaborate, in effort to reach some of those audience where they're lacking, where they do not have, certain capacities. They're reaching out to other members of the supply chain, or they're working together. I see that a lot in some of our farmers markets, in a platform where, there are a lot of, individual producers there, but that's where they've had to, just because of the scarcity of resources, they've had to team up in order to maybe address some of the market needs.
Well,
Great.
I noticed the question. I noticed the question also had to do with finding employees. And interestingly enough, we all work at colleges. I encourage them to reach out to their local college in whatever format they have of, job finding help through the college. Those are great ways to find new, fresh employees.
Yeah.
Every university, every community college has somewhat similar of a career center, professional development center. Yes, a great point that not a lot of businesses are taking advantage of.
It's very true.
Yeah, and not just colleges. Reach out to the local high school. They have 4-H programs, and you can sponsor something at your goat creamery. And don't be afraid of high school kids, because some of these may end up being permanent employees for you.
Yeah, another suggestion would be the workforce center. I know a lot of us also work with some of the individuals at the local workforce centers, and if you have one locally, that may be somewhere to also tap into.
Great suggestions. John, I'm going to direct the next one your way. Our friend Emily Perlmeter at the Federal Reserve Bank out of Dallas surfaced the issue of childcare. I know we all work with and have childcare businesses as clients of the SBDC. We have many of them coming in for training to learn about how to better manage the business end of taking care of our little blessings. But I think this question is directed a little bit more toward the small businesses themselves, how our business owners and their employees might be struggling with the issue of childcare for their own children. Any of you, we'll start with John, and then if anybody else has anything they can add, what they've seen with their clients.
Yeah, we've seen that. I have a few clients that I've worked with that have actually started childcare facilities, and their biggest problem was, they were qualified, they had all their certifications, but they did not have the money to be able to build a location or totally renovate a building. And we were able to work out a partnership, and this was in some rural areas, and in two of them, work out a partnership with a local church that had the facility, that had the room, and they've got a kitchen. They had everything they needed, and that facility was basically sitting empty during the week. And they have been successful leasing that from the church. It gave the church a boost in funds, which was really good for them, and it gave the child care facility a place to operate. So forming those type of partnerships sometimes can be something that really helps. And then I think what a lot of people have run into when they talk about childcare, and I don't know about this question, was with these kids having to study from home. And it looks like pretty much everybody's going back in the fall, and that will somewhat take care of that problem. But for these people that were trying to be, the business person, the mom, the teacher, the child care person, I think teachers have gone way up in a lot of people's esteem levels, and they see what they're doing. So hopefully some of that will kind of go away, but partner with other people in the community and figure out ways to overcome these problems. But as far as your own kids, I'm not so sure I can tell you what to do with them. Find a qualified place for them to go.
Great. I'm going to jump back to a previous question having to do with finding employees. Within the chat box, you'll find a posting by one of our SBDC advisors, Lucinda Vella, who has provided contact information for Dan Wallace of Workforce Solutions Alamo. That's obviously pretty geographically specific, but I'm sure that, like the SBDC, Workforce Solutions has a footprint throughout the entire state. So it will be a matter of finding your local representative that can offer you some information about local programs and resources to help find and train up strong employees. Jaime, I think we probably have enough time to address the question of what SBDCs have done with rural communities, some of the exceptional types of offerings that they have been aware of. Do you want to lead that question?
Sorry, I'm having problems with my sidebar. But anyways, yeah. So I'm sorry, Mary. I can't. Had a little technical glitch on my microphone. Can you repeat that one more time?
The question for our SBDC advisors about resource partners in their local community that have responded to the pandemic to help small businesses in their area.
Okay, thank you for repeating that. Yeah, so I mean, I think, and some of the other organizations that we've been dealing with, I know you mentioned a great one with the Texas Workforce Commission. Amy brought up the different, the career centers with universities, dealing with your own, who you're dealing with right now, where you're housed at in your small business development center. I think, your local governments, your counties and your cities are still offering, around the state, resources, for assistance. I know early on, for example, the Bexar County and the city of San Antonio, yes, they did offer grant opportunities to all businesses, and they had to apply, and there were certain requirements, but not just the grant opportunities that were available, but also issuing, PPE that was available very early on in our communities, and talking to the business communities that yes, protecting not only your clientele but your employees was something that was very necessary and still very vital to your continued life of your business. I don't know if any of the other panelists want to add what some of their communities were doing.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add. Some of our communities were offering rental assistance grants. They were also offering COVID-19 assistance grants to keep these businesses going. And just thinking about other, organizations. I mean, again, our center never shut down. We made modifications and went virtually and continued helping as many clients as possible. So, I would throw us in there as one of those nonprofit organizations that made some changes and continued moving forward with helping clients.
Just another example, I have 4 different communities, 4 different economic development corps, and their responses were all different. And but I had a couple of them. One was extremely hands-on, out in businesses, even in the midst of all of it, making sure they could get access to me. It was just a fascinating difference between each of them. The other one did a lot of social media, just a lot of connecting, a lot of information and resources sent out over and over with different links and things like that. So it was interesting to see each one and how they responded, because I have, like I said, 4 different ones, and each one is different. And I appreciated that they all wanted to try something. And yes, we did have a county in our area that offered grants as well. Short-lived, a brief opportunity this spring, and that was only for one county out of the 4 that we service.
Thank you, Amy, for that. We've got a couple of minutes, but I do know one resource that not a lot of the business community can access are your local elected officials at all levels of the government that you can reach out to for assistance, guidance on where to get information. You have issues within your business community, in your business, reach out to your elected officials in the area that you're doing business in. That is a great resource that some people just don't know about, whether it's in your everyday life and obviously very importantly, the business community. Let's go around real quick. We've got about 2 minutes left. And I want to be able to give everybody the opportunity to provide your contact information. I'm just going to go how I see you. John, please, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, if you're in the Beaumont area or anywhere in Southeast Texas, 409-880-2254 is my office number. And my email is jlee51, I wish that was my age, at lamar.edu.
Because you're younger. Amy, how do people contact you?
You could try me at my office at 903-389-5710. Although I do have 3 offices, so I encourage people to just utilize my email address at amy.freeman@navarrocollege.edu.
Thank you. Mr. Mark.
I'm with the University of Houston Victoria Small Business Development Center. You can reach us at 361-485-4485. And my email is Martinez, MARTINEZMA, the number 9 at uhv.edu.
Thank you. Mr. Dexter.
Yes, I'm in Lubbock, Lubbock, Texas, with the Small Business Development Center at Texas Tech. I can be reached at dexter.sykes@ttu.edu, and my number here is 806-745-1637.
Thank you. And thank you again to all the panelists for participating with us today. I thought this was a great discussion. We have great questions from the audience. You know, again, to reach out to any of us, and you know, you want to find the local SBDC that is in your area here in the state, you can reach out at the website sbdctexas.org, and there is there's a locator option there to find the nearest office to you. And again, because we can cover all the different counties that we have throughout our state. So it was an honor being with all of you today. Thank you, Mary, for participating as our chat captain. Thank you for all the great questions that we've had for our attendees today. And you know, we look forward to seeing you in the other sessions that we have over these next day and a half. So we will be seeing you all soon. And don't forget, this session is being recorded if you came in a little bit late. You all have a great rest of your week. Take care now.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Jaime.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.